Many things come to mind when one hears the word monstrous. Perhaps an evil villain like Darth Vader, whose will is so twisted by the dark side he wipes out entire planets in cold blood. Perhaps you think of a historical figure like Hitler, Stalin, or Mao. So great were their atrocities that some people refuse to believe that they happened. If you're someone who delves a bit more into history than the average Joe, perhaps you think of the Cambodian killing fields or the human experimentation done in Unit 731 by the Japanese. There are good reasons why we think of all of these things when the word monstrous is invoked. It is indeed correctly applied to them. Yet, I contend all of these atrocities and barbarities of history are dwarfed by the true greatest tragedy of humankind. Hello, this is The Unborn Voice, a channel dedicated to pro-life philosophy and apologetics. In this video, I will explain why abortion is not only wrong, but the greatest atrocity of human history. Abortion is a ruthless barbarity which must be ended if humanity is to claim even an ounce of moral progress. Abortion is wrong because it intentionally kills an innocent human life. Unless you are a utilitarian or relativist, ethical systems tend to agree that it is always wrong to intentionally end an innocent human life. But why is it not just wrong, but an atrocity the likes of which we can barely comprehend? First and foremost is the sheer scale of the practice. Even pro-lifers who are somewhat well-informed do not fully comprehend the depth to which this horror permeates society. Every day in the year 2025, 2,800 children were dismembered, suffocated, starved, and poisoned in the womb. That is in the United States alone. In the same country, the average homicide rate per day is only 62. This means that for every born person killed in the U.S. every day, 45 unborn children are killed on the same day. Even the tragedy of suicide, often considered the leading cause of death in the developed world, only claims 131 lives every day. This means for everyone who sadly ends their life in the U.S., there are 22 lives intentionally killed in the womb by abortion. It is estimated that since Roe v. Wade in 1973, when abortion was legalized across the U.S., 63 million people have been intentionally killed in the womb, according to the Guttmacher Institute, Planned Parenthood's own research group. To put that into perspective, Mao Zedong is credited with the deaths of 50 million people from killing, starvation, and disease. Hitler is credited with 17 million, Stalin 10 million, and Pol Pot 3 million. None of these come close to abortion. Looking globally, the picture is even bleaker. There are only a few governments in the world which fully recognize the unborn as innocent human life, and most of them are pretty small. According to the Guttmacher Institute, there are roughly 73 million abortions every year in the world, or about 200,000 every day, which means there are as many unborn people killed in the womb every year as the fatalities of the entirety of World War II, the bloodiest war in human history. If you are someone my age, Generation Z, roughly 1/3 of us never made it out of the womb alive because of abortion. These people were one of us, all of them. They would have been our friends, classmates, coworkers. One can only guess what their names would have been, what the unique color of their eyes would have looked like, what clothes they would have liked to wear, or what their favorite flavor of ice cream would have been. How many cherished memories were robbed of us because 1 out of every 3 people in my generation was brutally killed in the womb? How many interesting and valuable lives do we never get to know and never have the pleasure to be lived because their light was snuffed out when it had barely begun to shine? Not only is this tragic enough, but what little is left of their memories are further tarnished by a massive group of people who deny their very existence as persons in the first place. They choose to ignore the humanity of these individuals and pretend they are merely a growth, a clump of cells, or completely worthless. What further disrespect could there possibly be? They have not only been orphaned by their own parents and deprived of life they rightfully possess, but are further rejected by a society which champions their destruction or is largely apathetic to their plight. The nature of the abortion victim is the second reason that abortion is not only the greatest atrocity in human history, but the greatest atrocity possible which one can perform upon another individual. The unborn child is completely reliant upon his or her mother in every possible way except their mere existence. This is often cited as a reason that they are not deserving of moral consideration. On the other hand, the more dependent one is on another, the more we ought to take pity and go to extra lengths to ensure this person is respected and loved. This is the case because they are defenseless and in need of our help. This is especially tragic when the one upon which a person depends becomes an instrument not only of their abuse but their death. A stranger abusing a child is horrible, but a father abusing his own child even more so. A baby dying is tragic, but it is especially evil when the very vehicle to their death is their mother's womb, which is supposed to be a safe refuge for their beautiful lives to begin. In an abortion, the soft cradle of the womb is exchanged for the cold, hard grip of sulfur clamps, or a dry suffocation chamber. The warm embrace of the tightest bond possible for two human beings is subverted to one of rejection and expulsion. The womb is converted from a wall of safety to a prison whereby death becomes inescapable. The more vulnerable an innocent life is, the more it ought to be protected. There is nobody more vulnerable than the unborn child. They cannot run, they cannot scream, they cannot speak up for themselves. The only testimony we have of their short and cut off lives is their images and statistics about how many of them were killed. Almost all of the children killed in the womb by abortion are not only forgotten, but suppressed, their memories buried. These defenseless children, the weakest and smallest among us, have their lives reduced to a mere choice, as if they can be discarded without consequence. Their well-being does not even factor into the equation of our moral calculus, all because they are not developed enough to consider it for themselves, as if this is relevant to their dignity. The final reason abortion is the greatest tragedy and abomination in our species' lifetime, though the other two would be enough, is the extent to which their dehumanization and mistreatment is not only tolerated in our societies, but celebrated and promoted. Shout your abortion campaigns and marches of people by the thousands in favor of this legalized slaughter. The propaganda which misleads millions to consider the unborn is little more than a vestigial organ, and the political push for the erasure of the unborn human under the banner of women's rights are all symptoms of an evil which has deeply gripped the heart of a nation. The abortion lobby seeks not only to be allowed to practice the horror of abortion, but to force everyday citizens to subsidize it through taxpayer funding. They do this not only for their own nations, but to send their money and ideology to kill children abroad, our money, for their ideology. There are more people working actively to kill children than there are actively trying to save them. So what can be done against such an evil? How can we end this? How can we create a society in which all humans are extended moral consideration regardless of birth status? The good news is that there is a way. We've seen in the past how a universal institution, that of slavery, can be ended and rendered unthinkable. We have seen that social reform is an effective tool of moral progress. If you are as upset about the fact that our societies kill an untold number of lives as I am, get involved in the pro-life movement in some capacity. Maybe it looks like donating to an effective activist group. If you need guidance on which ones are the most effective, get in touch with me and I will link you with them. Maybe it looks like volunteering at a pregnancy resource center, or maybe it looks like jumping into the fight yourself and committing your life to advocating in the public square for the unborn as I have. Either way, if you do nothing, evil will triumph. I have chosen to put myself on the front line because I am not content to let it. If you want to get involved but do not know how or what steps to take, contact me at my email address and I will help you as best I can. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more thoughtful and engaging pro-life content. Leave a comment below if you watched until the end, and as always, your life has value, and I hope you have a nice day.